Exposed, 7 spine-chilling hidden camera horrors that revealed unexplained evil in plain sight. Rachel's heart raced as she scrolled through the grainy footage on her laptop. The little red blinking lights signaled everything was recording, capturing the pulse of her home. It was meant to provide reassurance while she worked late shifts at the diner. Now, it felt more like a watching eye, breathing down her neck. Tommy, her 13-year-old, was glued to his gaming screen, oblivious. Ella, bright-eyed and mischievous, was climbing the kitchen counter for late-night snacks, her tiny fingers reaching into forbidden territory. The mundane moments were laced with love, and a hint of dread, but then the shadows began to creep in. Flickers caught on tape, something darting just out of frame. Chills crawled down Rachel's spine. At first, she brushed it off. Overactive imagination, right? But when she heard soft whispers vibrating through the walls at night, that's when the fear tied knots in her stomach. The basement held secrets, dark memories her kids couldn't fully articulate. And then, the disappearances began. A toy here, a shoe there. Each moment twisting tighter around her mind. Days rolled by, and night after night Rachel studied the footage. It became an obsession. She watched them play, pace, sleep, she watched the mess unfold. But something else emerged, something sinister. Tommy would awaken, murmuring odd phrases that sent shivers running down her back. Ella, always cautious, kept glancing toward corners, the same ones Tommy seemed to gaze into as if expecting someone, or something to emerge. Rachel felt the pull, an unsettling presence lurking just beyond the edge of her vision. Her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, seemed ever present on the feed, standing in his yard, watching her children. At first, he smiled, the kind of grin that might break the tension of an awkward moment, but Rachel felt the frigid edge beneath his friendliness. Approaching him that day felt like walking into a spider's web, nervously tapping on the fragile threads. "Lovely kids you have, Rachel," he said sweetly, his voice rolled like honey. But there was a darkness there, an undertone that wrapped around her like a vice. She smiled back, but it felt like a mask slipping on instead of a shield. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The next night, it escalated. A distinct whisper echoed up from the basement, wrapping around her like fingers pulling her down. Her heart beat a frantic tempo as she approached the door. What was happening? The tightening in her chest turned to outright panic when she stumbled across disturbing photographs under the basement stairs. Images of Tommy and Ella, taken without permission, and from obscured angles. "Who did this?" she gasped, her voice a trembling whisper. The photographs were worse than any lurking shadow, they were a clear threat. The urban legend whispered in the back of her head, the unseen watcher, the sinister neighbor. Would she be able to protect her children, or had they attracted something dark, something far more sinister than a weary mother could dispel? Every flicker on the screen felt like a countdown, pushing her closer to the edge. One way or another, Rachel steeled herself. It was time to confront the terror that drifted just beyond her door, lurking with a smile that froze her to the bone. What else lay hidden in the shadows? And who would be watching as she stepped deeper into the abyss? Rachel's hands trembled, the photographs slipping through her fingers and fluttering to the dusty floor. She glanced over her shoulder, the weight of the house pressing down, amplifying the echoes of her pounding heart. Was it always this silent? It felt as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting, watching her. No longer just a feeling, the pressure wrapped around her throat like a noose. She backed away from the stairs, her instincts screaming that the basement wasn't merely the foundation of her home, it was something much more sinister. She could feel it pulse like a living thing, lurking below, waiting for its moment. Rushing back upstairs, Rachel slammed the basement door shut and locked it, the sound echoing through the entryway like a gunshot. She didn't want to think of what awaited her below. The whispers had grown louder, practically slithering through the air, drawing her in with a yawn of menace. "Mom?" Tommy's voice cut through her panic like a knife. She turned, finding him standing in the hallway, his brow furrowed. "What's wrong?" "It's nothing, sweetie," she lied, forcing a smile. But even to her own ears, it sounded shaky, like the last branches of a tree in a storm. Tommy's eyes narrowed, his childlike intuition honing in on her fear. "Are you sure?" "I heard you." "It's just the wind," she said quickly, the lie tasting bitter. It could have been the wind, but she doubted it. The whispers felt so real, crawling just beneath the threshold of her hearing, snaking into her thoughts. Rachel ushered Tommy back to his room, her heart racing as she closed the door behind them. She glanced at Ella, tucked snugly in bed, her tiny chest rising and falling with smooth innocence, much too innocent for any of this. Would the shadows find their way to her, too? Did they know about her childish fears? The screens flickered around her, washing the dim sanctuary in a pale blue glow. Rachel sat down, craving the comfort of the familiar, and started the footage from earlier. Each second ticked loudly in her ears, but as she scrolled through, waves of dread crashed over her. Was the basement truly the source of her terror? Or was it something or someone close by? Then she saw it. A shape, a flash in the corner of the screen there, just behind Tommy during a late-night game session. Her breath hitched. Leaning closer, she squinted at the grainy footage, a dark silhouette grinning, blurred but there, caught on tape like some ghoulish guest. Rachel felt a chill seize her heart. It wasn't Mr. Thompson in the yard, nor any other familiar face. No, this one was something else, something worse. A soft knock on the window behind her interrupted her thoughts. Her stomach dropped. Turning slowly, she saw Mr. Thompson standing outside, his smile twisted in the shadows, the moonlight accentuating the sharpness of his teeth. His eyes glinted with something animalistic. "Rachel!" he called out, the sweetness of his voice soaked in a dripping undertone that made her skin prickle. "You forgot to say goodbye." "I'm just checking on the kids. You know I care." Panic surged. Was he really just a neighbor? What lengths had he gone to, lurking in the shadows, taking those photos? "Get away from our house!" she shouted, trying to sound firm, but the words dripped with desperation. The smile never faded. Instead, it widened, revealing more teeth, more menace. "You know they're only safe when they're with me, right? I'll always watch over them." More whispers filled the room, thick and suffocating, hiding just beneath the floorboards, creeping toward her as she felt the shadows lengthen. The computer screen buzzed, displaying the last clip, a solitary ghost in the background, always watching. Rachel inhaled sharply. This wasn't just going to end. How deep did the darkness seep into her life? What other secrets awaited her in the shadows, or were they already poised to strike? The hollow of night echoed, and her fears deepened. Was her home still a sanctuary, or had it turned into a snare? The door rattled, her heart echoed in her ears. What awaited her on the other side of that door? The rattling intensified, each shake a taunt from the dark. Rachel's palms pressed against the desk, nails biting into the wood as she grounded herself in the present. The whispers shifted to a low hum, like a distant chant, wrapping around her. She couldn't stay here. Not now. She darted toward the children's room, heart racing. The only thought pounding in her mind was to get them and run. But would they even be safe there? What if Mr. Thompson broke in? What if whatever lurked in the basement followed them? Trembling, she pushed the door open to find Tommy sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, fear written across his innocent face. Ella slept peacefully, utterly unaware of the chaos surrounding her. But Tommy wasn't sleeping. He'd been waiting. "Mom, I heard you yelling. What's going on?" His voice was small, yet the urgency was palpable. Rachel knelt beside him, gripping his shoulders, fighting the urge to look over her shoulder. "We need to be quiet, Tommy. I need you to listen. No more talking, okay? Not even a whisper. Can you do that for me?" He nodded, eyes darting to the half-open door. She could see him putting the pieces together. Saving face was impossible at this point. Before she could say anything else, the door swung wide, propelled by a gust that shouldn't have been there. The moonlight that spilled into the room was unsettling, the shadows shifting too eagerly, the tight groove in Rachel's chest deepened. "Stay close to me," she whispered, the command shaking in her throat. Taking Tommy's hand, she glanced at Ella, who remained oblivious. For a moment, peace settled over the room, an insignificant respite, then the whispers became a roar. "Mommy!" Tommy whimpered, pulling away, eyes wide as the shadows took shape, glitching against the walls like a bad reception. They writhed and twisted, coiling like serpents, promising horror. "Stay with me!" Rachel shouted, panic igniting her desperation. She turned, trying to see through the chaos, searching for anything that could help anchor her. Suddenly, the console emitted another flicker. The footage from earlier played again, but this time, the screen was static. A dark silhouette dominated the chaos, but now it wasn't just behind Tommy. It was closer. It seemed to pulsate, drawing breath, eyes hollow, intent set on her children. Time stopped, she grabbed Tommy, yanking him closer as the flicker transformed into ominous clarity. "Run!" she screamed, pushing him toward the door with every ounce of strength she had. The chill of the shadows chased them, hungry and fierce. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught the last glimpse of that shape. It slithered along the floor, barely touching the ground, deliberate in its advance. As they dashed into the hallway, she slammed the door, praying it would hold. Their small breaths echoed in the silence, quick and erratic. Rachel felt the weight of darkness draping over them, senses on fire. She had to find a way out, she had to protect them. But there was more lurking just beyond the door, more than she ever anticipated. The audio on the footage crackled to life again, the mumbled whispers breaking through her racing thoughts. Words formed familiar phrases, twisted in a way that clawed at her sanity. "You'll never escape." "What was that?" Tommy whimpered, eyes darting toward the door. Rachel held her breath, listening intently. Was it the whispers or her memory playing tricks? Just then, a loud thud against the door made them both jump. Echoing footsteps raced toward the hallway, heavy and steadfast. It wasn't just Mr. Thompson. Something was coming for them, and it was angry. A sliver of hope glinted in Rachel's mind. The window, she pulled open the next door, their only exit, adrenaline fueling her resolve. The world outside was solid, but every instinct told her it wasn't over yet. Without thinking, she grabbed Tommy's hand, racing to the window as the noise behind them escalated a cacophony of fury. "Mom! I'm scared!" Tommy cried, gripping her tighter. "I know, honey. But we have to keep moving. Trust me." The shadows thundered against the door, and just before she yanked the window open, she could have sworn she heard laughter mixed with those haunting whispers, but the thought was lost as she threw herself through the opening, pulling Tommy with her. They tumbled to the ground, the night air crisp against her skin, yet something pulled at her heart, a dread that the horror had not ended, only transformed. In the distance, the shadows whispered, promising to find them, what waited for them in this new world outside, unbound and free from the house but not the terror. As they ran, the air teemed with questions, echoing in the depths of her mind what had truly crossed the threshold, and would they ever be safe again? The chill of the night wrapped around Rachel and Tommy as they stumbled through the yard, heartbeats drumming a frantic rhythm in their ears. The house loomed behind them, dark and brooding, as if waiting to unleash the horror it had kept hidden. The shadows behind them slithered just out of sight, teasing, tempting her to look back, but she forced her gaze ahead, not daring to break her focus. "Where are we going?" Tommy asked, voice trembling, his small hand slick with sweat in hers. "Anywhere but here." Rachel gasped, a mix of fear and determination propelling her forward. The grass felt wet beneath their feet, each blade a reminder of the normalcy that had vanished, replaced by something unnatural, something hungry. As they sprinted, the chilling laughter echoed in her ears, twisting in and out among the sounds of the night. It was closer now, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket, feeling as if it belonged to whoever or whatever had followed them from the house. "Mom!" Tommy's voice cracked in panic, dragging Rachel back to reality. As she turned to him, the air thickened like molasses, and suddenly, a loud crash shattered the night, a wooden chair splintering into 1,000 fragments nearby. Rachel's heart raced. They were not alone. She stilled, listening, eyes scanning the darkness. Those whispers were closer now, mingling with the rustle of trees, blending into the night. It was as if the shadows themselves were plotting against them. "Run!" she urged once more, yanking him forward as they darted toward the woods bordering their property. Thick branches reached out, hungry fingers ready to ensnare them, but they pressed on, fear driving them deeper into the trees. Every step seemed to unleash a storm. All around was a cacophony of snapping twigs and rustling leaves, yet the laughter persisted, weaving in and out like a malicious companion. Rachel's throat tightened as she recalled the dark shape, how it moved with an eerie fluidity. The trees began to thin, and a shiver crawled up her spine. In the distance, lights flickered, an old gas station she had overlooked. Maybe it could offer shelter, maybe a phone, anything. "Mom, I don't want to go there," Tommy whined, fear etched on his face. "We have to," she insisted, forcing herself to maintain a semblance of control. They had to reach those lights, to feel something other than the oppressive darkness. As they neared the edge of the woods, shadows danced behind them, creeping, skirting just out of view. Then it happened. A stone shot out from the shadows, striking a nearby tree with a sickening thud. Rachel froze. She felt the air thicken around them, a tangible weight pressing down as she took a step back, breath hitching in her throat. "No, no, we have to go," she urged, backing away from the tree, but Tommy was already pulling her toward the flickering lights. Against her better judgment, she relinquished her fear and let him drag her forward, the promise of safety blurring her instinct to flee. As they broke into the clearing, the feel of wind on her skin surged through her nerves. But the relief was short-lived. The gas station stood decrepit, its windows shattered and the door hanging ajar, creaking softly as if whispering secrets of despair. "Mom, stay close." Tommy clutched her hand tighter, but his eyes were darting around, scanning for unseen threats. "Stay close," Rachel echoed, barely above a whisper, though her heart raced with the instinct to protect him from the place they were about to enter. With every step toward the threshold, dread gnawed at the pit of her stomach. The whispers surged, now blending into a sinister chant. And just as they crossed the threshold, something cold brushed against her cheek, a lingering touch unlike any other, familiar and chilling. She froze, the door swinging shut behind them with a definitive slam that echoed like a gunshot. The hairs on her neck stood on end as she turned, eyes wide with horror. "What's in here, Mom?" Tommy whispered, backing into her. But Rachel was too busy staring into the gloom, where the shadows coalesced into something more than just darkness. The air thickened, suffocating. He should never have crossed that threshold. What if she began, trembling, barely able to articulate the fear that clawed at her tongue, but before she could finish, a voice echoed. It couldn't have been Tommy's. It was deeper, darker, and echoed from the corner of the gas station, chilling her to the bone. Welcome home. What had they really stepped into? Had they escaped one nightmare only to plunge into another? Rachel's heart thundered in her chest as the voice lingered in the air. Darkness cloaked them, absorbing any glimmer of hope she had nurtured. The gas station, once a beacon, transformed into a suffocating cage. She instinctively pulled Tommy closer, feeling his small body trembling against her side. "Mom?" His voice was barely above a whisper, like a fragile thread that could snap under strain. "Shush," she hissed, eyes darting around, searching for the source of the voice. Shadows flickered, elongated by the dim light. Her pulse quickened with every second they lingered in that threshold. She felt the walls closing in, curdling her breath into tight, shallow gasps. "Welcome home," the voice echoed again. It was taunting, probing, slipping through the darkness and swirling around them like smoke. Rachel pressed a hand against Tommy's mouth, silencing a whimper that threatened to break free. They hesitated, torn between fleeing into the darkness or searching for escape within this forsaken sanctuary. Rachel's instinct screamed to run. Yet curiosity gnawed at her, urging her to confront the unseen. "We need to find a way out," she murmured, pushing past the door with a mixture of dread and desperation. The interior was a ruin. Shelves lay overturned, displaying nothing but debris. Flickering fluorescent lights above buzzed ominously, casting erratic shadows that twisted with every flicker. Each step they took seemed to awaken the remnants of a forgotten past. A layer of dust stirred beneath their feet, whispering tales of abandonment. "Where is everyone?" Tommy's voice trembled again, eyes wide as he peered around. "I don't know," she replied. But she had a sinking feeling they were not truly alone. It was as if the very gas station was breathing, anticipating their movements, watching. A sudden crash echoed from behind the counter, breaking the eerie stillness. Rachel jumped, instinctively wrapping her arms around Tommy. They edged closer to the counter, peeking over. The sight was frozen in time. A coffee pot tipped askew, remnants of brown sludge pooled beneath it, and a chair was knocked to the floor. As her eyes darted, she caught sight of a faded photo hanging crookedly on the wall. It depicted a family, faces frozen in false joy, yet there was something off about their gazes, something predatory. "Mom!" Tommy's voice broke through her daze. "The door." She swung around. It was still ajar, but something moved outside. A figure deep in the shadows, just out of reach of the flickering light. No, it couldn't be. Her heart sank as the realization struck. "Get down!" she hissed. She threw herself over Tommy, a protective shield, adrenaline surging as the figure lurched forward. "Welcome back," the voice came again, now closer, dripping with malice. The words wrapped around them, tightening like a noose. Panic burst forth in a wave, overriding her instincts. She had to move. Leaving the safety of the counter, she grabbed Tommy's arm and dashed toward the back of the gas station, hoping to find an exit. Each step echoed, a reminder that they were not the only ones alive in this nightmarish place. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed them whole. Panic clawed at Rachel's throat. "Mom!" Tommy screamed, his voice laced with terror. "Stay close!" She shouted back, but her voice faltered as she stumbled, the ground turning to uneven earth beneath her feet. Before she could regain her balance, a hand shot out from the shadows, grabbing her wrist in an iron grip. Her scream ripped through the silence, echoing into the void. "Join us," the voice whispered, the malicious undertone wrapping around her, dragging her deeper into despair. As she fought against the grip, desperation surged. She could hear Tommy's frightened breath, feel the weight of her child's terror. Just as darkness began to close in, she yanked her head back and managed a frantic stare at the figure. "Who are you?" she cried, eyes wide in defiance. But the shadow leaned closer, its face unrecognizable, shifting. "What do you think?" The crushing weight of fear bore down on her. A split second ticking by, and she knew it was never just a house or a gas station. It was the embodiment of something primal. The pulse of terror quickened, and it became clear, they had stumbled into a trap. "Mom, run!" Tommy screamed, breaking through the haze with a surge of childlike instinct. With a swift motion, Rachel pulled away, throwing her weight against the darkness. They barreled toward the rear door, desperate to escape the grip of whatever awaited them. But as they neared the exit, an otherworldly howl echoed, shaking the very foundation of the gas station. The ground quaked beneath them, and shadows writhed, forming grotesque shapes. "What are they?" Tommy sobbed, tears streaming down his cheeks, fear etched into his delicate features. I don't know, but we can't stop now. Rachel screamed, pressing her palm against the door, feeling the imperceptible pulse of fear racing beyond it, and as the door creaked open, the threshold loomed before them once more beyond it, the darkness beckoned, waiting to consume them whole. What if they stepped outside only to find something worse waiting? The air thickened with dread as Rachel squeezed through the narrow opening of the back door, pulling Tommy along. The darkness seemed to curl around them, a living entity that clung to every inch of their skin. Outside, the night was a void, swallowing the weak glow from the gas station behind them. Which way? Tommy stammered, his breath like ice against her cheek. Anywhere but here. Rachel replied, scanning the empty expanse before them. Their surroundings held a stifling silence, pierced only by muffled echoes of their heartbeat, a grim reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond their sight. She took off toward the flickering lights of an old diner across the lot, dragging Tommy behind her. Each footfall felt heavy, as if the ground itself resisted their escape. Shadows flitted at the edges of her vision. She dared not look, but could feel them pressing closer. "Mom!" Tommy cried, a note of panic creeping into his voice. "What if they get us?" "Shoo!" Rachel shot back, forcing herself to keep her voice steady. "We're going to be okay." The diner loomed ahead, its sign cracked and barely illuminated. She pushed the door open. The familiar ring of a bell felt jarring in the tense atmosphere. Inside, the place was deserted. Tables lay askew, and the smell of stale food hung in the air like a dark omen. "Maybe we can hide here until morning," Rachel suggested, hoping to soothe both herself and Tommy. They slipped into a corner booth, pressing against the vinyl upholstery that felt sticky beneath her skin. Outside, shrill laughter drifted into the diner, the kind that sent chills racing down her spine. "Did you hear that?" Tommy whispered, wide-eyed, clutching her arm. Rachel nodded, stifling the urge to cringe. "It's just people." But as she scanned the windows, the shadows passed by, their forms indistinct, growing and fading in the half-light, creating a sense of an audience lurking at the fringes. Then she saw it, the reflection on a broken mirror behind the counter. A face pale and twisted, grinning with sharp teeth blinking slowly, as if aware of her gaze. Rachel's breath caught. "Tommy, stay here. Don't move. I want to go home." He sobbed, shaking with fear. "Just a second." She insisted, her heart thudding louder in her ears. She hardly dared to inch closer, but something compelled her to investigate. As she crept toward the counter, another piercing howl echoed outside, this one more human, more agonizing. It panicked her. "We need to get out of here." Rachel turned back, but the diner was no longer as she had left it. The tables shifted as if rearranged by unseen hands, and the light flickered ominously. Faint whispers filled the air, slithering around her like tendrils of smoke. The voices were familiar but distorted, calling her name in a sickly sweet allure. "Mom?" Tommy's timid whisper cut through the chaos. "Where are you?" "Right here," she called frantically. The diner bore down on her, the very walls seemed to shift, closing in. Frantically, she searched for Tommy, struggling to quell the growing unease that twisted inside her. Suddenly, the exit door burst open, revealing a figure wreathed in shadows. Rachel felt the temperature drop, breath freezing in her lungs as a sense of foreboding washed over her. The figure stepped inside, the sound of its boots echoing like a death knell. "Did you miss us?" It rasped, voice a sickly sweet whisper that coiled around her. Rachel's heart raced as primal instinct kicked into gear. "Tommy! Run!" She screamed, but the words were barely out of her mouth when the figure lunged. In a rush, she dove back to Tommy, grasping his wrist. "We have to go." But as they bolted for the door, the walls of the diner shifted again, a tightening cage, trapping them in a nightmare they couldn't escape. "Mom!" Tommy wailed, terror etched across his young face. As Rachel pulled with all her strength, fear coursed through her. The figure laughed, a horrifying sound that echoed in her mind. You can't leave, it's not over yet. And just as they pushed against the door, a sharp pain branched through her arm, a sharp tug, a grip she couldn't break free from. The sensation froze her in place, rooted in instant terror. She turned slowly, dread filling her. What awaited them beyond that door? Would they ever find a way out of this nightmare? Shadows closed in, and the finality of their fate began to carve itself in darkness. In that moment, Rachel felt the chilling truth. They weren't just hunted, they were preyed upon by something unfathomably evil. What if the darkness knew their deepest fears? The diner's bell jingled ominously, a cruel announcement of their precarious position. Rachel tugged at Tommy's wrist, her heart pounding in her chest like wild drums. The laughter from outside grew louder, and she flinched, the cruel melodies cutting through the air like glass shards. "Mom! I can't," Tommy whimpered, his small frame trembling beside her. "Focus, Tommy!" she snapped, her voice edged with panic. They were trapped, surrounded by familiar figures that had twisted into grotesque versions of what they once knew. The shadows outside churned, eyes gleaming like feral animals, eagerly waiting to close in on their prey. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. An eerie silence hung in the air, stretching until it felt suffocating. Then came a soft shuffling, dragging against the linoleum floor, echoing through the emptiness. It was closer, almost as if the diner itself was awakening. "Rachel," a voice whispered, sweet yet filled with malice. It sounded like her own, warped and broken, but layered with an unsettling mockery. "Rachel, help me, don't listen to it," she urged, grasping Tommy tighter. She glanced toward the source of the voice, a shadowy figure emerging from behind the counter. It was the same grinning face she had seen in the mirror, now stepping into the light, revealing eyes that shimmered with a predatory glint. "Your failure is so entertaining," it cooed, tilting its head, the smile stretching impossibly wide. "Why do you insist on running? You brought this upon yourselves. Get away!" Rachel shouted, but fear clung to her words in a thick stutter. The air was charged with a malevolent energy that made her skin crawl. In that moment, the shadows outside burst forth, spilling into the diner as if drawn by the terror within. Rachel felt a weight settle over her, suffocating in its oppressive grip. The walls pressed inward, and she could hardly breathe. "Mom!" Tommy cried out, tears streaming down his cheeks as he started to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Shadows enveloped them, whispering dark secrets that scraped against her mind. "I want to leave." "Then we leave," Rachel shouted, snapping into action. "Follow me." She ripped Tommy from the booth, darting toward the nearest window. Shattering glass echoed like thunder as they broke through, tumbling into the jagged world outside. Cold air hit them like a slap, but relief was short-lived. The diner's exterior shifted, twisting into a maze of nightmarish distortions. "Mom!" Tommy gasped, his eyes wide with terror. "Where do we go?" "Stay with me," she barked, scanning the landscape. The gas station lights flickered in the distance, promising safety, but a darkness pooled around them, hungry and threatening. The figure lurked just behind them. "You can't escape what's inside," it taunted. "More will come. It's never just the one." They raced toward safety, but a shadow loomed ahead, blocking their path. An anguished scream erupted from Rachel's throat. She yanked Tommy to the side just as the figure lunged at them, but its grasp slipped through the darkness, seeking but not finding purchase. "Run!" Rachel called, throwing herself at the gas station door. But it was locked, the dim light within flickering like a dying star. "No! Please!" Tommy begged, his young voice breaking, rattling within her. Rachel's breath was ragged. Panic coiled tightly in her chest. "We're almost there," she panted, heart racing a mile a minute. She turned, the hollow laugh echoed around them. The shadows writhed like serpents, coming back in waves, choking the air. "There's no way out for you, Rachel." It was everywhere now, its voice mocking. It felt too familiar, as if it had grown from her own fears. Just then, an unsettling sound pierced the air, a low, grating scrape that sent shivers down her spine. Something more was coming. Something bigger. A rumble, deep and threatening, roiled beneath the ground. Rachel froze in fear. What if the darkness desired more than just them? It wanted the town, wanted everything. In that moment, the atmosphere crackled around her as she realized the horrible truth: they weren't being hunted at all. They were drawn into a sick game, and she had no way of knowing what the rules were or if there was any way to win. As the shadows closed in tighter, she clutched Tommy's hand. What started as an escape was morphing into a trap far wider and more sinister than she could imagine. Could they even escape their own fears in time? Would they ever make it to safety or succumb to the darkness waiting to claim them? The shadows lunged, choking out the breath in Rachel's throat. She turned, pulling Tommy closer, feeling the warmth of his small body against her. But the familiar gas station lights flickered ominously, and she realized they were nothing but beacons of despair, lighting the way to a nightmare they couldn't escape. "Mom! I can't!" Tommy gasped, his fingers clawing desperately at her arm. "Stay with me!" she shouted, though doubt crept like a vine around her heart. The shadows closed in, their whispers growing into a frenzied cacophony, promising pain and fear. The scrape beneath the ground grew louder, a relentless, gnashing sound slithering through the air. Rachel dared to glance behind them. The figure was gone, but the swirling darkness beckoned. It was alive, hungry, and waiting for them to falter. "We need to go," she urged. Tommy's eyes flared with terror, darting left and right, seeking anything that resembled safety. But there was none to be found. Only those monstrous echoes and the oppressive night. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Footsteps resonated from below, a galloping rhythm that mirrored her pounding heart. "What is that?" Tommy screamed, panic rising like bile in Rachel's throat. She saw it then, the ground splitting beneath them, a gaping maw opening wide, revealing black nothingness beneath. "Run!" she shouted again, and they lunged toward the only thing that promised a way out: rusted gas pumps and a door still shuttered, but not locked this time. With a frantic shove, Rachel pushed the heavy door, but it resisted, creaking like a warning. They were close now. She felt the heat of Tommy's breath against her neck, urgency wrapping around them both. Just as she flung it open, a shriek pierced the air, discordant and filled with anguish. Something leapt from behind the door, a shadow cascading into the dim light. It was a creature, all twisted limbs and a familiar face twisted into a smile that was too wide to be real. "Found you," it sang, its voice dripping with mockery, as it lunged forward. Rachel barely managed to sidestep, pulling Tommy with her. They sprinted inside the gas station, the door slamming shut behind them with an ominous bang. But there was no rest, nothing resembling solace inside. The walls pulsed, distorted images dancing along the surfaces, taunting her, feeding on her fear. "Why did you bring him here?" The trapped echo of her own voice taunted from every corner. She clutched Tommy's hand as he trembled beside her. "What are we supposed to do?" he whispered, and Rachel, once the strong one, felt a crack in her resolve. The shadows slid under the door, creeping toward them like a tide of doom. "There has to be something," she huffed, her pulse roaring in her ears. She shoved a stack of empty soda cans aside, revealing a flickering light in the corner, a monitor, filled with static, flickers of their own faces caught in despair. Rachel leaned closer, searching for an escape while horrors unfolded in the shadows. Every static glitch revealed a reflection of her and Tommy, yet they stood in a diner, faces pale, arms reaching toward the screen, pleading. "Mom?" Tommy's small voice shook her from her trance. "What is going on?" As the lights flickered once more, she knew they weren't just watching, they were being watched. The realization struck like lightning: they were part of the performance. The darkness outside wasn't just hunting them, it was an audience ever hungry, ever waiting. "What do you want from us?" She cried out, her voice a tremor. The darkness stilled, as if considering her words, and from the shadows, the laughter rose again, shrill and mocking. "You know what to do," it whispered, wrapping around her like a noose. "Feed us your fears." Backed against a cold wall, she and Tommy stood trembling, heartbeats echoing in synchrony. If they were to find a way out of this nightmare, they needed to confront the shadows. But could they face the truths burrowing deep within themselves? Rachel glanced down at Tommy, standing small and vulnerable. An unwavering determination ignited within her. They had to endure. The game was only beginning. But what if facing their fears meant becoming the very thing that haunted them? As a dark shadow danced at the edges of her vision, she felt the chilling grip of dread tightening around her throat. What if it wanted not just their fears, but their very souls? The monitor flickered again, drawing Rachel's attention back to the screen. Shapes danced in the static, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw them, familiar faces, twisted in pain, mouths gaping in silent screams. A cold sweat trickled down her spine. Were those the lost souls? Were they trapped like her? "Mom, I don't want to see this. Please turn it off," Tommy cried, clutching her jacket as if it could shield him from the horror spilling from the screen. "I'm trying, baby." Her words failed as the images shifted, showing the gas station filled with people, all looking around with vacant terror in their eyes, just like hers. Were they another audience? "Why did you bring him here?" The sinister whisper echoed again, plucking at the strings of her guilt. Rachel bit her lip, memories flooding back how she wanted a normal night, a quick stop to grab snacks before heading home. How could a harmless errand lead them here, to face this nightmare? The shadows began to crawl higher along the walls, their fingers stretching toward them, each movement deliberate, mocking. "Feed us your fears," they hissed in unison, voices weaving into a sinister lullaby that sank deep in Rachel's chest. Without thinking, she dove toward the monitor, desperate for answers. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice quaking. The static shifted again, words breaking through the noise. "Dare to remember," it whispered like a serpent winding around her mind. Rachel flinched, recoiling from the terrible realization that cut through her. The darkness thrived on their memories, their fears. It wasn't just a monster from the shadows, it was a mirror. Tommy's small voice trembled in her ear. "Mom, what does it want from us?" "Your fears, our guilt," she murmured, afraid to voice the truth. She had lost so much, and now it wanted everything she'd hoped to protect. A crash erupted behind them. Rachel whirled around, heart racing as a dark figure flitted from shadow to shadow, the shrill laughter echoing more loudly, a cruel spectator's game. "Run!" she yelled, instinct kicking in. They sprinted toward the only aisle in the dim gas station, a labyrinth of creaking shelves that threatened to close in around them. Each step seemed to echo, magnified by panic. "Mom, I can't breathe," Tommy gasped, faltering as they dodged torn-up display cases. The shadows twitched, dancing eagerly, fed by their fear like a starving beast. Rachel glanced back, despair gripping her heart as shadows reached for them, those familiar faces twisted in their plea, hunger unmistakable in their eyes. Pushing through the growing panic, she dragged Tommy forward, determination clawing its way back through her fear. "Stay with me. Don't look back." In the distance, a faint light flickered from the gas station's restroom sign, a glimmer of hope, frail yet glittering amidst the despair. "To the bathroom," she yelled, dragging him with every ounce of strength. As they reached the door, she kicked it open and stumbled inside. A tense silence fell, the shadows unwilling to cross the threshold. For a moment, they were safe. But the silence hung heavy, suffocating. Tommy's breath shuddered beside her. "What now, Mom?" Rachel stared at the flickering bulbs overhead, dim and uncertain. "I don't know, we need to find a way out." The darkness whispered in the corners, waiting, always watching. Suddenly, the mirror on the wall caught her eye. A twisted reflection stared back, distortions of her and Tommy, but also something darker. Shapes shifted behind them in the glass, a faint outline, shadowed but real. "Tommy, watch out." The mirror cracked suddenly, shards bursting forth, like wicked fingers stretching out to pull them in. Panic seized Rachel as she yanked Tommy away from the glass. "We need to break this place open. We can't stay here." And as they turned to flee, the faces in the glass smiled grotesquely, filling the bathroom with a chorus of agonizing laughter. They were here to play, and Rachel knew, deep in her heart, that the game was far from over. What if breaking free demanded the ultimate sacrifice? As the laughter crescendoed, the bathroom door shuddered with unseen force. Were they truly going to escape, or was the darkness about to claim what it wanted? Rachel's panic swelled as the laughter erupted around them. The walls throbbed, pulsing with malevolent energy. The bathroom felt smaller, the air heavier. She clutched Tommy's trembling hand, scanning the space for an exit. "Mom, I'm scared," he squeaked, tears shimmering in his eyes. "I want to go home." She swallowed hard. "I know, baby. Just stick with me, okay?" The shadows outside whispered their twisted promises, taunting her every step. The bathroom door rattled, and with each ominous knock, Rachel felt the urge to flee intensify. The laughter echoed like a sinister heartbeat, reminding her of exactly how trapped they were. Suddenly, a light flickered above, a bulb burst, shattering into tiny shards that scattered across the floor. Rachel's heart raced. She had to show them her fears, but how? Then an idea struck her. "Tommy, listen to me." She bent down, grasping his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. "We're not just running. We're fighting back. We're going to face what scares us. Together, okay?" "But how?" he whimpered, eyes wide and innocent. She glanced back at the cracked mirror, the laughter creeping in. "By being brave. Remember the times we faced scary things together?" His head bobbed, mind racing through memories. "Like when we went to the haunted house and you said I was brave for not screaming?" "Yes. Just like that. This time, it's our turn to scare them away." Rachel took a deep breath, emboldened by her kid's nod of understanding. She yanked open the door, ready to confront the chaos outside. "Follow me. We're going to show them we're not afraid." As they stepped into the gas station once more, the shadows paused momentarily, taken aback as if questioning their audacity. Rachel stood tall, heart hammering, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "You want our fear? Come and get it." A wail erupted from the darkness, furious and hungry. But Rachel held her ground, pushing forward with Tommy close behind her. She had to embrace the dread swirling around her, each question forming into a mental shield against the gathering storm. "Let us find something to fight back with," she urged, eyes darting across disheveled racks, desperately searching. "We're not your prey." Tommy clutched a greasy wrench they stumbled upon, its cold grip comforting in his palm. "What do we do with this, Mom?" "Use it to defend ourselves. And remember what scares you most, Tommy. Use it against them." The shrill laughter escalated, desperate to engulf them. Shapes slithered closer, filling the air with smothering weight. "Feed us your fears," they chanted, and Rachel felt the shadows swirling closer, tightening their grip. "Tommy, focus," she commanded. "Think of something strong. Something you love." He paused, eyes narrowing. "The soccer team. Remember when I scored the winning goal?" "Exactly." Rachel shouted, courage igniting within her. "And you can do it again. We can win this game." A surge of energy pulsed through her as visions of strength replaced her fear, fueling the fire inside. Together, they stepped forward, defiantly brandishing the wrench like a sword against an enemy that had tormented them for too long. "Leave us alone," Tommy shouted, his voice rising above the laughter. "You're not scary." The darkness wavered, its laughter faltering under the force of their vigor. For the first time, it seemed to hesitate, a ripple of uncertainty dancing across its surface. Encouraged, Rachel called out. "We're stronger together. Show yourselves." In response, the shadows momentarily condensed, a swirling mass of discontent and rage, but now, it felt less menacing. With each heartbeat, the confidence radiated from Rachel and Tommy, forcing the darkness to retreat further from them. Suddenly, as if realizing it was outmatched, the shadows shrieked in agony. "We were meant to claim you. You dare defy, you have no power here." Rachel roared, swinging the wrench above her head. The movement sliced through the oppressive atmosphere, as the darkness recoiled, casting off sparks of twisted shadows that dissipated in the air. All at once, a blinding light erupted from the bathroom, spilling into the gas station as if erasing the shadow's hold. Rachel took Tommy's hand again, pulling him toward the brightness. Just like that, they burst through the threshold into the night. Breathing heavily, they found themselves standing outside in the cool air, untouched by the horrors lurking within. Together, they turned back, watching as the gas station darkened, shadows swirling before fading into the void. "Did we win?" Tommy gasped, eyes wide. Rachel nodded, heart swelling with pride and relief. "Yes. Together, we faced it and won." They held on to their courage tightly, light illuminating their futures, illuminating their paths forward, free from the chains of fear. As they started walking home, the air felt different, lighter even. Rachel cherished the vibrant memories of love that filled it, Tommy's laughter, Ella's innocence, all the warmth that made them strong against the darkness. With each step, she realized it might always be there, lingering. But now, it didn't matter. They could confront it together, no matter what emerged from the shadows. "Let us get ice cream when we get home," she suggested, laughter bubbling inside her chest. "Yeah. Can we have sprinkles?" Tommy grinned, finally at peace. "Of course," Rachel replied, smiling, knowing they had emerged victorious. They walked into the dawn, leaving shadows behind, ready for whatever else life might throw their way. Now, as you reach the end of this thrilling tale, take a moment to recognize its power. If you love this story, you need to subscribe now. Hit that button and let us ensure you never miss an exclusive, spine-chilling story like this again. And while you're at it, smash that like button to feed the algorithm, you know it helps. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. I can't wait to see what you think about the ending. Lastly, share this video with at least 5 friends who crave this kind of thrill. Don't wait even one more second. Your support is what keeps the stories alive. Let us keep exploring the dark together.